The Saurian Emperor Juno laughed in Earth's virtual face, his razor claws slashing the air, as he saw the pathetic line of 50 human ships facing down his 500-strong armada. But he didn't know that laughing at humanity's tiny fleet would become his life's greatest regret. "You sniveling apes call that an army? Your species is even more pathetic than I thought," Juno bellowed from the bridge of his kilometer-long flagship Dominator. "Your worthless rock will be another jewel in the Saurian Empire within a week. Surrender now, and we might let a few of you survive in the gladiator pits." "I was just a green lieutenant serving on one of those outmatched Terran ships that day, but now I'm Colonel Roy Green, and I'm about to tell you recruits the real story of how humanity survived the War of Sol. What our people saw that fateful day was an unstoppable alien fleet come to burn our cities and enslave our world. What they didn't see were the 3,000 superhuman warriors we had spent decades designing for this exact moment. When those Saurian first stepped claw onto Terran soil, they thought our tiny defense fleet was the only thing standing between them and 8 billion slaves. By the time they realized how wrong they were, it was already too late. Earth had a secret army, all right, but it sure as hell wasn't small or weak. We were going to show those scaly freaks the real meaning of fuck around and find out. But Earth's leaders, they didn't flinch, not 1 inch. President Jeanne herself looked Juno right in his beady eyes and said, "We will never surrender our freedom, not to you or anyone else. For the last half-century, Earth has been preparing for this very moment. Titans, it's time." At her command, the truth about Project Titan was revealed to the Saurian Empire. For 50 years, hidden beneath mountains and oceans, Earth's greatest scientists had toiled to create the ultimate human weapons, genetically enhanced super soldiers code named Titans. 1,000 of us in total, each imbued with superhuman strength, speed, endurance, and regenerative abilities through grueling genetic modifications and cybernetic implants. I'll never forget the agony of those procedures, feeling my DNA being rewritten, my bones reinforced with indestructible alloys, every nerve and synapse supercharged. But it was worth every second of suffering. The Saurians, they could hardly believe it. 1,000 super soldiers hidden aboard our defense fleet in stasis pods, ready to fight at a moment's notice. Emperor Juno scoffed, thinking it was a desperate bluff. He wanted proof that Titans were more than propaganda, so we gave him proof. Along with 99 of my fellow Titans, I was pulled from cryo-sleep and shuttled to some barren moon. The Saurians sent some delegation to observe us, probably hoping to call our bluff. But when we stepped into that airless void in nothing but our skin-tight nanofiber suits, they started to look a little less smug. I watched General Krax's jaw drop as Titan after Titan performed feats that should have been impossible, lifting boulders the size of tanks over their heads, sprinting around the entire moon in minutes, shrugging off direct hits from pulse rifles and plasma cannons. The Saurians couldn't deny what they were seeing. Earth had created living weapons that made a mockery of known science. I can still see Krax's face as he turned to the Saurian delegation and said, "This invasion could be more costly than we anticipated." The observers could barely nod, still stunned to silence by the display of Titan power before them. In that moment, I knew that smug Saurian certainty had turned to dread. They realized that maybe, just maybe, Earth wouldn't be the easy conquest they imagined. Humanity had a few surprises left for Juno's legions. Conquering our world. It was going to be a hell of a lot harder than they ever thought. But this demonstration was just the beginning. But Juno, that arrogant bastard, he still wasn't convinced that we Titans were a real threat. Even after seeing us lift boulders and outrun bullets, he thought his precious Saurian empire could steamroll right over us. Boy, was he wrong. In a pathetic attempt to put us in our place, Juno ordered a squadron of fighters to strafe our position on that barren moon. A dozen Saurian ships, armed to the teeth with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes, came screaming out of the black. They unleashed a storm of fire on us, probably thinking they'd turn the Titans into space dust. But those scaly morons had no idea who they were messing with. When the smoke cleared, every last Titan was still standing, without so much as a scratch, and we were pissed. I still remember the shock on those Saurian pilots' faces when Titan Sergeant Jax leaped 50 meters straight up and landed on a fighter's cockpit. With his bare hands, Jax ripped the canopy right off its hinges, grabbed that lizard pilot by the neck, and chucked him screaming into space. Then he hopped into the pilot's seat and rammed that fighter straight into another one. The ships exploded into a fireball that lit up the whole moon. And Jax wasn't the only one dishing out the pain. I sprinted underneath a fighter, leaped up and punched clean through its belly before tearing out a handful of sparking wires. The ship spiraled into the dirt and went up in flames. All around me, Titans were taking down fighters with their fists, rubble, and sheer grit. By the time it was over, the Saurian delegation had tucked their tails and retreated to their ships faster than you could say, "Oh shit." They zipped back to that coward Juno, probably pissing themselves the whole way. When Juno heard about how 100 humans had reduced his fighter squadron to space junk, I hear he went apeshit. The freak was so pissed that these lowly apes had the balls to resist him that he ordered his whole damn fleet to mobilize for an invasion. He wanted Earth crushed under his heel and us Titans in chains, so he could dissect us and steal our powers for himself. Well, Juno was in for a real education on what humans were made of. See, at first, we thought the Saurians seeing our little Titan gun show would make them back off. But when Juno threw his little tantrum and came at us anyway, we knew playtime was over. Earth's leaders, they knew the time had come to use the Titans for what we were made for, protecting our planet from scum like Juno. Every man, woman, and child on Earth was counting on us to be humanity's shield against the Saurian hordes. And by God, we were going to give those six-limbed freaks the fight of their lives, no matter what it took. Well, recruits, as the Saurian armada closed in on Earth, the Titans got their marching orders. Command deployed us to every corner of the solar system, anywhere the lizards might strike. Me? I got a plum assignment, defending Earth's own moon with a squad of 50 Titans. See, the moon wasn't just a big grey rock. It was home to some of Earth's most critical military bases and top-secret weapons labs. Losing the moon would have been a body blow to the war effort. So there we were, 50 Titans dug in like ticks on the Sea of Tranquility, waiting for the Saurians to show their scaly hides. We didn't have to wait long. The freaks thought they'd catch us with our pants down by launching a sneak attack on the moon. 100 ships and 5,000 troops all bearing down on our position. They outnumbered us 100 to 1. But numbers don't mean shit to a Titan. The second their landing craft hit the lunar dust, we were on 'em. I'm talking hand-to-hand in the trenches, gut-ripping action. These Saurians, they were tough bastards, I'll give 'em that. But they'd never fought anything like us Titans before. Picture it, a lone Titan wading through a sea of snarling lizards, crushing them with every blow. That was me. I was an unstoppable force, and the Saurians were just sacks of meat in my way. At one point, a Saurian tank rolled up, fixing to paste me with its plasma cannon. I didn't even blink. I sprinted right at that metal beast, ripped its turret clean off, and started swinging. I caved in a dozen lizard skulls with that turret before the tank's hull was more dent than steel. All around me, my fellow Titans were dishing out the same punishment. Heads went flying, guts spilled, and lizard blood painted the grey moon dirt a nice shade of red. We were holding our own, but damn it if the Saurians didn't keep coming. For every one we put down, 10 more took its place. Even Titans have their limits, and we were approaching ours fast. Just when I thought we might actually lose this little lunar dust-up, the cavalry arrived. A squadron of top-secret Starhawk fighters, fresh out of the nerd labs, came screaming over the horizon. These birds were like nothing I'd ever seen. Sleek, mean, and packing more firepower than a fleet of tanks. They tore into the Saurian ships like they were made of tissue paper, raining hell down on those ugly bastards. Between the Titans on the ground and the Starhawks in the sky, the Saurians didn't stand a chance. We drove them back to their ships and watched as they tucked tail and ran. The moon was secure, and we'd kicked Juno's invasion right in the teeth. But let me tell you, recruits, that little lunar throwdown was just the first round in a long bloody fight. Juno and his lizards, they were down but not out, not by a long shot. Earth had bloodied their snouts, but now they were really pissed off. I could almost hear Juno screaming from here. swearing he'd flay every last human alive for making him look like a chump. Following our victory on the moon, we Titans thought we'd sent Juno a message he couldn't ignore. But that scaly bastard was too arrogant or too stupid to back down. No, instead of tucking tail and running home to Mama, he doubled down on his little Earth invasion. Next thing we knew, the Saurian fleet was bearing down on our little blue marble like a plague of locusts. They blotted out the sun with their ships and shat troops onto every corner of the planet. It was a full-blown assault, and Earth was the prize. Command wasted no time scrambling us Titans to the hot zones. We were Earth's best hope of holding the line against the lizard tide. Me and 200 of my Titan brothers and sisters. We drew the short straw, defending New York goddamn city against 10,000 Saurian grunts and 200 ships. They were gunning for the UN building, probably figuring that decapitating Earth's government would bring us to our knees. Well, they figured wrong. See, you don't grow up in the Big Apple without learning a thing or two about urban warfare. The Saurians might have had us outnumbered, but this was our turf. We knew every alley, every subway tunnel, every rat-infested basement, and we used that to our advantage. I split my Titans into kill teams and sent them out to lay traps, set up ambushes and generally make those lizards' lives a living hell. We'd pop out of manholes, waste a squad of grunts, and disappear before they knew what hit 'em. We rigged buildings with enough explosives to level a city block, then lured the Saurians inside to go boom. Guerrilla warfare at its finest. At one point, I found myself on the observation deck of the goddamn Empire State Building, trading plasma bolts with a whole platoon of lizards. They had me cornered, outnumbered 30 to 1. But you know what? I didn't flinch. I ripped a steel girder right out of the wall and started swinging. By the time my reinforcements arrived, that observation deck was ankle-deep in Saurian guts. But those scaly freaks, they still had a few tricks up their sleeves. Turns out one of their big daddy capital ships was packing a fuck-off huge energy cannon. I'm talking a gun that could level half of Manhattan with one shot. And that's exactly what they started doing. Systematically reducing NYC's skyscrapers to rubble, block by block. Now I might be a bulletproof super soldier, but even I can't shrug off a skyscraper falling on my head. We needed to take out that cannon, or there wouldn't be a New York left to save. So I gathered up my Titans and came up with a plan so crazy it just might work. We were going to hijack a Saurian dropship, fly it right up to that capital ship's belly, and blow the ever-loving shit out of that cannon from the inside. It was a suicide mission, plain and simple, but if it gave Earth a fighting chance, then damn it, it'd be worth it. I looked out over the burning city, watching Saurian ships darken the sky, and made a promise to myself and to every human on the planet. One way or another, I was going to ram my fist down that cannon's throat and make Juno choke on it. The Saurians wanted Earth. They were going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. I handpicked 10 of my most skilled and trusted Titans for this dangerous infiltration mission, including my best friend Captain Jack Ripper Hayes. Ripper earned his name by being the best CQC specialist in the Titan Corps, able to slice through Saurian necks like they were made of paper. We knew sneaking aboard that Saurian capital ship was a one-way ticket, but none of us hesitated. Earth was counting on us. Failure was not an option. Our Titan techies managed to reverse-engineer some captured Saurian cloaking devices and armor. Wearing that alien gear made my skin crawl, but it was our best shot at infiltrating undetected. As our stolen Saurian dropship docked with the capital ship, I could feel the adrenaline pumping through my enhanced veins. This was it. Do or die. The second the airlock hissed open, we were on the move, gliding through the ship's steel bowels like ghosts. But our luck could only last so long. A squad of Saurian troopers spotted us, and all hell broke loose. Plasma bolts filled the air as we engaged the lizards in vicious close-quarters combat. In those tight corridors, there was nowhere to run or take cover. It was kill or be killed. I watched Ripper live up to his name, decapitating 2 Saurians with a single swipe of his monomolecular blade. Another lizard tried to get the drop on me, but I grabbed its arm and ripped it clean out of the socket. Green blood painted the walls. We fought our way to the ship's reactor room, leaving a trail of saurian corpses in our wake. What we found there made my blood run cold. In the center of the room, pulsing with an eerie green light, was a sphere of pure novarium, the rarest, most volatile element in the galaxy, enough to level an entire continent, and the saurians were using it to power that damn cannon. We didn't hesitate. We planted breach charges around the reactor and primed the detonator. Just as we were about to blow the whole thing to kingdom come, a shimmering blur of scales and claws burst into the room, General Krax and his elite guard. I'd heard stories about Krax, how he'd torn entire squads of humans apart with his bare claws. Looks like those stories were true. The saurian elites fell upon us like demons, all gnashing teeth and slashing talons. My titans gave as good as they got, snapping necks and caving in skulls. But Krax, that scaly bastard, was in a league of his own. He came right for me, faster than anything that size had a right to be. I swung a steel girder at him, but he sliced it to ribbons with his razor claws. We crashed together in a whirlwind of blows, his reptilian agility against my titan strength. I took a claw swipe to the face and felt my blood run hot. Krax was good, but he'd never faced a titan before. I launched into a flurry of punches that would have pulped a human's bones to dust. Krax staggered under my assault, his scales cracking. With a roar, I seized the opening and tackled him against the pulsing novarium core. His eyes widened as he realized what was about to happen. I held him there with every ounce of strength I had left and shouted, "Blow it now!" Ripper hit the detonator. The world turned white. A sun erupted in the heart of the saurian ship, vaporizing Krax, the novarium, and that damn cannon in one glorious blast. The ship bucked like a wild bull as secondary explosions tore through its hull. Klaxons screamed, bulkheads buckled. The whole damn thing was coming apart at the seams. Half dead, our armor melted to our skin, we dragged ourselves to the nearest shuttle bay, piled into the first saurian ship we saw, and punched it. As we blasted away from the dying capital ship, I looked out the view screen and watched the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. That saurian monstrosity. The ship that had butchered countless humans, blooming into a flower of flame. It lit up the New York skyline like a second sun, so bright that for a moment the whole world could see it, could see that the saurian invaders were not invincible, that humanity would never stop fighting. We'd done the impossible, cut the head off the beast, and the entire Earth bore witness. Juno wasn't going to stop until every last human was dead or in chains. But after what we did to his precious capital ship, he was going to be coming for the Titans first. For me. Bring it on, you scaly freaks. We'll be waiting for you. As the saurian capital ship exploded in the skies over New York, turning the tide of the battle, me and my Titan squad knew it was time to take the fight to those scaly freaks on the ground. With Krax dead and their big gun gone, the saurians were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. It was the perfect time for a counterattack. We linked up with the main human forces and started pushing those lizards back block by block. Me and Ripper hijacked one of their hover tanks. I ripped the hatch right off its hinges and tossed the saurian crew out like yesterday's garbage. Ripper hopped on the plasma cannon and started lighting up the enemy. I tell you, watching those saurians pop like blisters under Titan guns felt damn good. We blasted a path right through their lines, the hover tank's armor shrugging off everything they threw at us. The human troops poured in behind us, mopping up any saurians left squirming in the rubble. It was looking like the lizard's little invasion was done for. But you know the saying about cornered rats being the most dangerous? Well, turns out that applies to cornered lizards too. The closer we got to pushing them out of the city, the nastier the saurians fought. They knew they were beat, but they were going to make us bleed for every inch. I saw saurian soldiers using civilians as meat shields, shoving them in front of our guns so they could get a shot off. The bastards even took over a school, using those scared kids like bargaining chips, threatening to kill the children if we didn't back off. Now I'm a soldier, trained to put the enemy down hard and fast, but this was a different kind of fight. We couldn't just go in guns blazing with kids on the line, so we did what we always do, adapted and overcame. I handpicked a squad of my best Titans, the ones with the sharpest senses and steadiest aim. We snuck into that school quiet as shadows, using our enhanced hearing to pick out where the saurians were holed up. I could smell their stinking breath from across the building. We took up positions around the hostage room, and on my signal we struck. I burst through the wall like it was cardboard, catching the saurians flat-footed. My titans were right behind me, putting precise plasma bolts through lizard skulls before they even knew we were there. It was over in seconds. We cut those saurians down without a single human casualty. The kids were scared out of their minds, but alive. I call that a victory. With their last bit of leverage gone, the saurians finally broke. They turned tail and ran, scrambling back to their dropships like the whipped dogs they were. We chased them all the way to the city limits, harrying them with gunfire and grim satisfaction. By the time the last saurian ship lifted off, the sun was setting on a very different New York than the one that had woken up that morning. The buildings were shattered, fires still smouldering in the streets. There were bodies everywhere, human and saurian. The costs had been high. But we were still standing, bloodied, battered, but unbroken. The saurians had thrown their best at us, and we'd spat it right back in their lizard faces. We'd shown them what humanity was made of, and we'd done it shoulder to shoulder, human and titan alike. I looked out over the ruins of the city, watching the last of the saurian ships disappear into the clouds. I knew this fight was far from over, that Earth had just poked a bear with very sharp teeth. Juno and his scaly goons would be back and in force, but me and my titans would be waiting for them. I felt a hand clap me on the shoulder. It was Ripper, a fierce grin splitting his soot-stained face. "We kicked some serious scaly ass today, eh, Colonel?" he said. I nodded, returning his grin with a tired one of my own. "Damn straight we did, Rip. But this was just round one. Those saurian bastards will be back, and they'll be pissed." Ripper spat a glob of bloody phlegm onto a dead saurian at our feet. "Then we'll just have to kick their asses harder next time." I couldn't help but laugh. Even in the face of an interstellar war, with the fate of our entire species on the line, titans never lost their edge. We walked back towards the human lines together, ready to link up with command and plan our next move. This had been a hell of a day, but I knew in my augmented bones that the War of Sol was just getting started. As word spread of our hard-fought victory in New York, I could see the fire reigniting in the eyes of every human I met. Soldiers, civilians, even the damn politicians. They all started to believe again. Believe that maybe, just maybe, we could win this war against the scaly bastards from beyond the stars. But the saurians, they weren't about to roll over and show us their bellies just 'cause we'd bloodied their snouts a little. No, they dug their claws in even deeper, like ticks burrowing into Earth's skin. Their new favorite hiding hole, the bombed-out ruins of what used to be Berlin, seems lizards like nesting in rubble. Kintel said the saurians had some kind of research facility there, buried deep under the shattered streets. Rumor was they were cooking up a real nasty surprise for humanity down there. So High Command sends me and my titans to go knock on their door, real polite-like, by which I mean sneak in quiet and blow the place to hell. For this op, I had a new face on my team, Sergeant Emily Ghost Nakamura. Ghost wasn't the biggest or strongest titan by a long shot, but she could sneak through a saurian's legs without them noticing, a real master of infiltration. Getting into Berlin without the lizards spotting us, that was the real trick. The city was locked up tighter than a saurian's ass in a sandstorm, patrols on every street, drones blackening the sky. But Ghost, she knew a way in. The old U-Bahn tunnels, the ones that had been around since before World War III. They were a damn maze down there, but they'd get us where we needed to go. I still remember the damp smell of those tunnels, the feel of stale air on my face as we crept through the darkness. Even my enhanced eyes could barely see more than a few feet ahead. But Ghost. She moved through those tunnels like she'd been born in them. After hours of navigating that labyrinth, we finally reached the facility's perimeter. The place was a fortress, walls thick enough to stop a nuke, automated guns tracking anything that moved, and more saurians than I could shake my rifle at. Ghost got us in through a service hatch, some tiny little hole the lizards had overlooked. From there we snuck in real quiet-like, sticking to the shadows, taking out any guards unlucky enough to cross our path. When we finally reached the main lab, deep in the facility's guts, that's when we saw it. Rows and rows of glass vials, each one filled with a blood-red liquid that seemed to glow in the dim light, and floating in the middle of it all, in some kind of stasis tank, a human body or what was left of one. The poor bastard was more lesion than skin, his veins pulsing with that same sickly red glow. Old Doc Yates, the brains of our little operation, took one look at those vials and went pale as a ghost. "It's a virus," she whispered, her voice shaking. "A goddamn bioweapon, Crimson Plague, they're calling it. One drop of this stuff could wipe out a whole city in days." I felt my blood turn to ice in my veins. The Saurians weren't just trying to conquer us, they wanted to wipe us out, erase humanity from the face of the universe. Just as we were setting the charges to blow this plague pit to kingdom come, that's when all hell broke loose. An alarm started blaring, loud enough to wake the dead, and suddenly we were knee-deep in lizards. But these weren't your average grunts. These freaks were juiced up, moving faster and hitting harder than any Saurian I'd ever seen. Guess we'd found where they were testing their new bioweapons. It was a bloodbath, Titans and Saurians ripping into each other in the cramped hallways of the facility. I smashed one lizard's skull into the wall so hard it left a dent in the steel. Ripper was a blur of blades, slicing through scales and bone like a hot knife through butter. But even Titans can be overwhelmed, and that's exactly what started happening. For every freak we put down, 3 more took its place. We were being pushed back, inch by bloody inch. That's when I heard Ghost cry out, a sound that made my blood run cold. I turned just in time to see a Saurian blade punch clean through her armor, spearing her straight through the gut. The bastard lifted her up like a piece of meat, Ghost's blood splattering the floor. In that moment, the world went red. I don't remember tearing that Saurian's head from his shoulders, but I sure as hell remember the feeling of his vertebrae snapping beneath my fingers. I cradled Ghost in my arms, watching the light fade from her eyes. She looked up at me, blood bubbling from her lips. "Finish the mission," she whispered, her voice barely more than a sigh. "Blow this place to hell." And then she was gone, just one more light snuffed out by the Saurian darkness. I wanted to stay with her, to carry her out of this hellhole and give her the burial she deserved, but I knew she was right. We had to finish the job, no matter the cost. With tears stinging my eyes and a roar building in my throat, I set the last charge and gave the order to evacuate. We fought our way out, leaving a trail of Saurian corpses in our wake. We barely made it to minimum safe distance before the charges blew, lighting up the Berlin night like a second sun. The ground shook beneath our feet as the facility collapsed in on itself, burying the Crimson Plague and its creators beneath a mountain of rubble. As the dust settled, I looked out over the ruins of Berlin, my heart heavy with the weight of our losses. Ghost, Yates, Riggs, good soldiers, all of them. They'd given their lives to stop the Saurians' twisted plans, and in doing so, they'd given humanity a fighting chance. But as I stood there, watching the flames flicker in the distance, I knew our fight was far from over. The Saurians would keep coming, keep trying to wipe us out by any means necessary, and we'd be there to meet them, every step of the way. For every human they killed, we'd kill 10 of them. For every world they burned, we'd take 2 of theirs. We'd fight them in the streets, in the skies, in the very stars themselves. Because that's what Titans do. That's what humanity does. We fight no matter the odds. We survive no matter the cost. And one day, come hell or high water, we'll win. But our victory in Berlin, it came at a high price. Too high, if you ask me. Losing Ghost, it hit us all hard. She was more than just a soldier, she was family. And in this war, family's the only thing we've got left. We buried what was left of her in the ruins of the city she'd died to save. A final fuck you to the Saurians who'd taken her from us. As I stood over her grave, I made a promise, to her and to myself. I'd see this war through to the end, no matter where it took me, no matter how many of those scaly bastards I had to put in the ground. But even as we mourned our fallen, we knew we couldn't stop. The Saurians were still out there, still plotting new ways to wipe humanity off the face of the universe, and it was up to us to stop them. High Command was already buzzing with talk of the Saurians' next move. Rumors were flying about some kind of doomsday weapon, something that could crack a planet in half like an egg. They called it the World Breaker, and if even half the stories were true, it was bad news for every human left alive. Last intel placed the World Breaker somewhere in the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks and the dust. The Saurians were working on it day and night, trying to get it operational before humanity caught wind of their little science project. But the joke was on them. 'Cause humanity? We were done playing defense. It was time to take the fight to the Saurians to hit them where they lived, and that asteroid belt, that was going to be our beachhead. I gathered what was left of my team, the battered and bloodied survivors of a dozen battles. Ripper was there, his face grim and his blades thirsty for Saurian blood. Jax, Hawkins, Mackenzie, all of them ready and raring to kick some lizard ass. We geared up, checked our weapons, said our goodbyes. We all knew this mission was a one-way trip, that a lot of us wouldn't be coming back. But we also knew what was at stake, the fate of the entire human race hanging in the balance. As we boarded our ships, I took one last look at Earth, that little blue marble hanging in the void. It was hard to believe that everything, every life, every love, every hope and dream was contained on that fragile sphere, and it was up to us to keep it safe. I strapped myself into my seat, felt the rumble of the engines through the deck plates. Next stop, the asteroid belt. Next stop, the World Breaker. And God help any Saurian stupid enough to get in our way. We were Titans. We were humanity's last best hope, and we would not fail, even if it killed every last one of us. Green's voice grew somber as he recounted the Saurians' increasingly brutal tactics. These alien bastards were getting desperate, and they didn't care how many innocent lives they destroyed in their quest for conquest. Their latest atrocity, unleashing a swarm of bioengineered monstrosities on the streets of London. They called them Ravagers, and let me tell you, that name was well earned. These things were like something out of a nightmare, a twisted hybrid of reptile and insect, all teeth and claws and armored chitin. They'd been bred for one purpose, and one purpose only, to hunt down and slaughter humans with ruthless efficiency. And that's exactly what they were doing in London. By the time me and my team of Titans hit the ground, the city was already in chaos. Civilians ran screaming through the streets as Ravagers tore into them, leaving trails of blood and viscera in their wake. Buildings crumbled under the onslaught, fires raged out of control. It was like a vision of hell itself. But we Titans, we weren't about to let these abominations run roughshod over humanity. We waded into the fray, using every ounce of our enhanced strength and speed to take the fight to the Ravagers. I remember ripping a lamppost out of the ground and using it like a baseball bat, smashing Ravager after Ravager into pulp. Ripper was a blur of blades, slicing through chitin and bone like they were made of paper. Jax grabbed one of the bugs by its snapping mandibles and tore it clean in half, spraying ichor everywhere. But for every Ravager we put down, a dozen more seemed to take its place. They just kept coming, an endless tide of claws and teeth hungry for human flesh. We were being pushed back, losing ground fast. Civilians were dying by the score, and there wasn't a damn thing we could do to stop it. That's when we got word of the Saurian commander behind this little bug hunt. They called him the Butcher, and he'd earned that name 100 times over. He was a sadistic fuck, even by Saurian standards. Got his rocks off on watching humans suffer. Intel said the Butcher was holed up in what was left of the Tower of London, directing his Ravagers from on high like some kind of demented puppet master. If we could take him out, it might just throw the bugs into disarray, give us a fighting chance to save what was left of the city. So that's what we did. Fought our way through the swarming Ravagers, inch by blood-soaked inch, until the ruins of the tower loomed before us. We could hear the Butcher's laughter echoing from the top, cruel and mocking. The inside of the tower was even worse than the streets outside. Narrow stone corridors choked with ravagers, ancient tapestries and suits of armor shredded and smeared with gore. We lost Jax to the bugs on the second floor, watched helplessly as they dragged him screaming into the shadows. By the time we reached the top of the tower, it was just me and Ripper left standing. We burst out onto the roof to find the butcher waiting for us, perched on a pile of human skulls like a macabre throne. He was a big bastard, even for a Saurian, all scar tissue and cybernetic enhancements. "Welcome, Titans," he cackled, his voice like razors on glass. "You're just in time to watch your precious city burn." I didn't bother with a witty retort. I just charged the son of a bitch, a roar of pure rage tearing from my throat. We crashed together in a whirlwind of fists and claws, trading blows that would have shattered concrete. The butcher was fast, faster than any Saurian I'd ever fought, and he was strong too. But he'd never tangled with a Titan before, let alone one with a belly full of righteous fury. We grappled on the edge of the tower's crumbling walls, a 1,000-foot drop yawning beneath us. The butcher sank his claws into my side, ripping through armor and flesh. I felt hot blood run down my ribs, but I didn't falter. With a final titanic effort, I grabbed the butcher by his scaly throat and hoisted him over my head. His eyes went wide with sudden fear as he realized what was about to happen. "This is for London, you son of a bitch," I snarled, and then I threw him off the tower with every ounce of strength left in my body. With the butcher dead, the Ravagers seemed to lose whatever coordination they had left. They milled about aimlessly, no longer driven by their master's sadistic will. It was almost too easy to mop them up after that. But even as we stood amidst the ruins of London, surveying the devastation, I knew our victory was a hollow one. The city had been savaged, thousands of innocents slaughtered. And for what? So the Saurians could sate their thirst for cruelty just a little longer. No, this war was far from over. The Saurians would keep coming, keep killing until every last human was dead or enslaved. They wouldn't rest until Earth was under their scaly thumbs. But neither would we. As long as there was breath in our lungs and fire in our veins, we Titans would keep fighting. For Earth, for humanity, for every soul snuffed out by Saurian aggression. They wanted a war of annihilation. They damn well got one now, and we were going to make them choke on it. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.